Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Speak for Yourself podcast. My name is Casey, and I'm so glad that you are joining us either live or at a later date on Spotify or wherever you watch it. I have my next guest, Carl. How are you doing, Carl?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, man. So I found you on Twitter, and I believe my first exposure to you was just pictures of your extensive gun collection, which is quite impressive, I must say.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It took me um, about 6 years to build that.
Wow. And you have a little bit of everything. You have handguns to long range to ARs and bullpups, and I think you probably even have AKs, right?
Yeah, I have a couple
Yeah.
of. I'm light on the AK department. I need to build that up more, but yeah, I have AKs.
So I want to talk a little gun talk first, just to get warm. So I've seen all your stuff. You posted one picture where you had a Taver and an AUG and a P90 all in the
Mhm.
same picture, and I don't think I've ever been more jealous in my life. There
Yeah,
might have been a Hellion in there as well.
yeah. There's a Hellion in there too. So
Oh man,
I love bullpups. For some reason, there's a lot of people who do not.
yeah.
And that's mainly because of the triggers. The triggers on bullpups are typically not the greatest. So, but I love them because
Is it
of
just a hard pull or what? I've never shot one.
it's a yeah, it's like it's a very heavy trigger pull, and some
Mm.
of them are spongy. Now the Hellion probably has the best trigger of all of the bullpups that I have. It's typically a light trigger pull. I mean, it's not lighter than like a really good AR, but it's still better than what your average bullpup is. The reason why I like bullpups is because of the fact that it gives you that compact feel, without sacrificing barrel length. So typically with something like an AR pistol, you have like a 10-inch or 10.5-inch or 11-inch barrel length, which you sacrificing some velocity with that. But with a bullpup, you have virtually the same overall length of the rifle, but with a 16-inch barrel. So that's why I like bullpups, and I really got into it because of Tim from Military Arm Channel. I watch his YouTube a
Hmm.
lot, and he's really, really into bullpups. So I started doing my research on them, and I had just one this year, and then for some reason I lucked out and was able to get the AUG, the P90, and another Tavor, as well as the Hellion all this year in the span of like 3 months because of my dealer. He really went to bat for me and getting it for me.
Awesome. Well, do you have a favorite platform between like the bullpups, an AR-15 platform, and like an AK, since they all do similar things?
Ironically, I shoot better with an AK. I'm more accurate with an AK, which is like an oxymoron to some gun guys. But my favorite platform is always going to be the AR because of how versatile it is. It's easy to shoot. Anyone who's coming into guns and want to learn how to shoot on a rifle platform, an AR is a good place to go because you can go from as small as the caliber as the 22 to upwards to like 338 in some cases if you're going like
Hmm.
specialty ARs. But typically the 223 and 556 round is such a great round because it's cheap. It's relatively cheap to something like a 300 blackout or 308. So when I'm shooting like 556, I can train with that more often. But the AK is still like it's like the second best. It's just the AK doesn't have a lot of customizable options like the AR does. The AR is more modular, while the AK is, set in stone. This is what you get, and be happy with it, basically.
Yeah. Now, whenever you're thinking about purchasing your next gun, is there any rhyme or reason to that? Do you say, oh, well, I don't have this type of weapon, so I'm going to try that? Or, what's kind of your
So
reasoning behind your next buy?
So early on, when I first started collecting, there was a rhyme or reason to it. There was like, okay, well, I need to get me a 9 millimeter, and I need to get me a 45, which is the best handgun to go with. I'll get the most reliable gun on the market. So in my mind, that was the Glock. So I would get a Glock. When it came to rifles, what was the most affordable AR I can get? That was like a Smith and Wesson M&P 15. So early on, yeah, that was like categories. I want to get me a rifle. I want to get me a handgun. I want to get me a shotgun. I want to get those three, I guess, full groups of guns. Get me a shotgun, handgun, and rifle. Once my collection started to grow, it was okay. I want to build a collection within a collection. Like right now, I'm big on CZs. So I'm trying to get every CZ handgun there is out there. So I just recently picked up a CZ75, the original bare bones base gun. So that completed, for the time being, the CZ collection. And then you see the bullpups that you mentioned earlier. I wanted to get a bunch of bullpups. Then now I'm like transitioning from that, and I wanted to get more bolt action guns. So I think my next gun is going to be a bolt action. Probably like I had recently sold my Ruger Precision rifle to get my SCAR. So I'm probably going to get a Ruger Precision rifle again to round out the bullpup collection.
Gotcha. Can you tell me your favorite carry gun and then your favorite non-carry gun?
So my favorite carry gun will probably be the Sig P365 XL. I converted it to a XL Micro. So it's basically the XL slide with the X Micro's grip. I carry that probably the most. Second to that, I carry a Canon Mentic, which is I have that gun actually right here. That's, yeah, about this gun right here, which is it's a pretty nice gun, and the rotation is a Glock 17. So I carry full size guns because my hand size is pretty big.
Okay.
So it's more comfortable for me to shoot. And probably my non-favorite handgun of all time would probably be my Desert Eagle.
Okay.
Because it's a blast to shoot. As far as like practical, it would probably be the CZ TSO.
Okay. Awesome. And so are you a glass guy at all?
Yeah, I like glass. I get criticized a lot about this on Twitter. I prefer irons.
Okay.
I have glass on some of my guns, not all of my guns. So of course my bolt action I have glass on, my SCAR I have glass on. As far as red dots on my pistols, like my competition pistols, they typically have glass on, but like things that I carry, not so much. My primary carry gun, the 365, has a red dot, but that's only because I bought the gun like that. I didn't add that. But yeah, I like glass. I'm just not that type of person. I like my irons better.
Gotcha. Well, that's fair enough. I have a buddy that prefers irons, and then I like glass, and then I have another buddy who prefers AKs over AR-15s, and then I prefer AR-15. So, there's something for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about the gun community that I love, that there's no wrong way to operate with your firearm. You can be a person that likes glass and likes lights and all that other stuff. And you can be a person that thinks all of that stuff on your gun makes it heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all how you see it and what feels comfortable to you. And if you're shooting proficiently with glass with like a red dot or you know LPVO, if you're shooting well with that, then that's fine. And if you're shooting good with irons, that's fine too. There's no wrong way of doing things.
Currently, I have a red dot with a 3x mag behind it. I'm liking that a lot.
Yeah, so there you go. Like, there's really no wrong way of doing it. Like, if you're shooting for distance, of course you need some good glass behind your firearm. But if you can shoot for distance with irons, then that's good too. More power to you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Carl, can you tell me a little bit about yourself prior to the main story, which we'll get into in a little bit?
Well,
Just who you are, about your family, all that kind of stuff, what you do.
yeah. So, for those who don't know, I am in security. Primarily, I do executive protection, and I am a armed security officer. So executive protection is basically a bodyguard. I am a person who have very high-end clients. These clients sometimes need a single person or a team. So I run a company. I run my own security company. Prior to that, I was in retail. Like, pretty much everybody who first start their first job, they either get into retail or fast food. One
One of my first ones was selling guitars. So
cool,
retail,
cool.
yep.
Yeah. So yeah, my first retail job was at Best Buy. So I was like doing stuff like that. So I do that. I live in Florida, one of the hottest states on the planet right now. I love the gun laws here in Florida because of the fact that it allows me to build my collection the way I build my collection.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I guess I'm really just a fun-loving guy. I mean, I don't take myself too seriously. I don't take what I do on Twitter too seriously. I mean, I'm a serious advocate, but the things that I encounter on Twitter, I don't let it bother me or get to me or anything like that. I get a lot of trolls who like to troll my account and talk crap to me, but I don't never let it get to me. I'm married. I've been married for a year now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be a year in October actually.
Okay.
I have no kids. We are planning on having a kid. We're still working on that. I have 2 dogs. I showcase them on Twitter a lot. They guard my house. One is a little scrappy, and one is, she's the boss of the house. She runs the house. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in Miami, Florida. I currently live in Central Florida, but I grew up in Miami, Florida, which, if anyone knows anything about Miami, it's super liberal. It's super left wing. It's also can be very dangerous down in Miami. There's a lot of things that go on there that people are not aware of, because Miami, everybody thinks about the beach, but there's a underbelly of Miami that is very violent. I lived in Miami for about, I want to say 22 years before I moved up here to Central Florida. Central Florida is where I met my wife. And like I said, we've been together 8 years, but been married for 1.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 36. I just turned 36
Okay.
last week on Saturday.
Well, happy belated birthday too.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So, can you get into the main story? Kind of, one of your life's turning points, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, yeah, it
Okay.
is. It definitely was a turning point. Um, so about a decade ago, I was a victim of a home invasion. So, this is around the holiday season. I was home. I heard like a loud crack at my door, like somebody was like trying to get in. And it's like sliding glass door to the back of my house. So I got up out of my bed to see what was going on. There was a guy standing in my dining room / kitchen area. He saw me, so I guess he thought that I was going to run and grab a gun. When in actuality, I was actually running to go grab my cell phone so I can call 911. So when he saw me turn and run towards the room, he shot me.
Ugh.
I was shot in the back, fell to the floor, was bleeding. Luckily, I was able to make it to the phone. He ran back out the sliding glass door. I called 911, and luckily they got there before I bled out. So I spent about 9 months in the hospital and rehabbing the injury, and I ended up making a full recovery. So the guy initially got his gun through a straw purchase. He used his girlfriend to buy a gun for him. He ended up getting 25 years, and she ended up getting 5. So, after
Did
that,
they catch him on your property?
no, they caught him a few weeks later.
Okay.
Yeah, they caught him a few weeks later. He ended up robbing someone else, actually. He didn't shoot that person, but they actually caught him. I had surveillance at the time, so when they caught him, they reviewed the tapes that I gave them and was able to link him to my attempted murder too. So, after that, at the time, I was a person who didn't own guns. I didn't believe in them. I was what people will call a gun control supporter now. I was a true blue Democrat. I believed in what the Democrats were selling and, things like that. So I didn't own a gun. I didn't believe in them. And I thought it was almost barbaric. I grew up in a family that was like, guns are just for police officers and criminals. Those are the only 2 people that have guns. The criminals shouldn't have guns, but they have them, and the police officers are the ones that's there to stop them. So I believed in that propaganda so wholeheartedly. So that's why I'm like patient now on Twitter with people who also believe in that propaganda, because some of these people, they grew up thinking that guns are bad and that, a person who would carry a gun is up to no good. That's what I believe. After that, I decided to look into getting a gun. Once I found out how this guy got his gun and, that the gun laws that were in place to prevent him to get this gun, because he was a convicted felon. The gun law that was in place to prevent him from getting this gun, he still was able to obtain a gun. So I started doing my research, see what it would take for me to purchase a gun, and I realized that, okay, it's not that difficult in the state of Florida to get a firearm. I know in other places that's not the case, but in the state of Florida, it wasn't that difficult to get a gun. All you had to have is, your ID, and a clean background. So I had both. So I started going on YouTube, and I started looking at some Second Amendment channels. Colin Noir was a big influence, and
Love that guy.
yeah, Military Arms Channel was another big influence. So I started watching those guys and listening to what they were saying about gun control, and listening to their arguments. And for me, I'm a person that I don't take what someone says as face value. I'll take what they're saying and I'll research it. So I researched what they were saying, and lo and behold, everything they were saying was true and made a lot of sense. And then I would research what the gun control people were saying. And then as I started to become deeper into gun culture, I realized that a lot of the things that they were saying was just bullcrap. Like, it wasn't true at all. A lot of the things that the gun people were saying on the gun side was they was being genuine. And when you're just spitting facts, it's easy to sell something. And I feel like a lot of the times on the gun control side, they try to manipulate you into going with their side. So
yeah, it's usually an emotional argument.
It's always an emotional argument. I've yet to see any person on the anti-gun side make an argument for their side without using some type of emotions to manipulate the person that they're trying to convince. Like today, unfortunately, we had another mass shooting in Jacksonville, and unfortunately, this shooting was racially motivated, allegedly. And so I'm seeing a lot of people on the anti-gun side using this to paint gun culture as being racist. And that's something that I just couldn't let slide. So when I bought my first gun, I bought a shotgun. That was what everybody that I've talked to on the pro-gun side and watching pro-gun YouTube channels said get. So I bought my first gun was a shotgun. And after that, I just caught the bug, and I just was like, okay, this gun is fun to shoot. What about other guns? Mm-hmm. And from there, I just started collecting. So at first, it took me about 3 or 4 years to really catch the bug of collecting. But for the last 6 years, I've really been collecting different guns, trading, and just acquiring different guns.
Gotcha. Well, how did your friends and family take the change?
Everyone but my best friend was not on board with it. Like I said, they thought in a very gun control liberal mindset of, guns are just for the police and criminals. And they felt like if I were to purchase a firearm, I'm letting what the criminal did to me win. That it wasn't that, oh, hey, I just want to protect myself. It's, oh, well, you're feeding into pro-gun propaganda, not realizing that they were feeding into anti-gun propaganda. I mean, a lot of them have come around because they see that, hey, it's not all, racism everywhere you look, or if you just even look at a gun as a black person, you'll be shot by, racist police officers or just some racist white guy or something like that. A lot of them started to see the lies that the anti-gun side was telling, and they've come around since then. But yeah, nobody but my best friend, who he's a police officer, so he was like he was down for it. He thought it was a good
Yeah.
idea. But everybody else was like, nah, you shouldn't do that. Some of them didn't talk to me for a while, and I
Was it
lost.
ever a point of contention where you had like arguments over it, or was it just,
Yeah.
they expressed their opinion and that was that?
No, I have an uncle who is pretty left leaning. He's still left leaning to this day. He doesn't believe in you know, a person should be carrying certain guns. Like he's not opposed to you having a gun, but he believes that you should have something like a shotgun or like maybe a handgun. But like things like ARs or semi-automatic rifles, period, he's not he's not on board with. And we've always had arguments about gun ownership, and he's a big supporter of things like an assault weapons ban or magazine limits or restricted background checks or mental health checks. He's a proponent of all of these things, and we've all gone back and forth at reunions and Christmas time and things like that. We'll talk about it. Somehow we'll get on that subject, and I'll argue my point very cool, calm, and collective. And he's a little hot headed about it. And usually, people within my family see my side because I'm calm when I'm talking about it. You got to exercise patience when you're talking to someone like that because their whole deal is to argue with emotions, and I've never been that type of person that argues with emotions behind me because I have the facts to back me up. They don't, so they get
Yeah,
frustrated.
that's a good point. If you can stay calm and speak rationally and not raise your voice, that sort of thing, you can usually win people over to your side a little bit easier.
Yeah,
It's one of those it's easier to catch flies with honey sort of
yeah,
saying. That's that sort of deal. But yeah, man, I guess that makes for interesting holidays, huh?
yeah. It's always an interesting time around Thanksgiving or Christmas or whenever he's around because he's very politically savvy, I guess. And the one issue he loves talking about with me is the gun issue because he knows I'm a big Second Amendment supporter and advocate and things like that. So whenever I'm talking about firearm ownership, he's usually he usually brings it up as a way to like antagonize me and get me
Yeah,
off my. He
bait you.
does. He doesn't understand. Like I literally do this 365 days of the year on Twitter, so it's like you know he's not gonna
Yeah,
come face though.
yeah. If you're on Twitter long enough, and you believe in something pretty heavily, you get pretty good at arguing.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I've been doing this since 2010. Like I've been on Twitter since 2010. Like some of my early tweets go back to 2012 of me arguing. This was around the time of the Sandy Hook tragedy
Hmm.
when all of that legislation was coming down the pipe and people was in the gun community was really worried that we was going to get an assault weapons ban because of what happened and that Republicans was going to support a ban. So I got on Twitter, I started doing my part, started advocating. I was getting all types of you're a baby killer or you support this or that or something like whatever tragedy that happened, you was for it because supported civilians or citizens rather having AR-15s and AK-47s and other guns and things like that. So yeah, I'm used to the emotional argument that they make. They use the same talking points and the same childish jokes over and over again. I don't fall for that. I encourage anyone who's watching or anyone that's on Twitter or any social media platform to not do not engage in emotional arguments or angry arguments that just makes us look bad because we're the one with the guns. They're the one without. So how the public, the people on the sideline look at it is If you're being hot headed and you're a pro gun person, well, it's only a matter of time before you use a gun on someone in an argument. While the people who are anti-gun, they don't have the guns, so they're looked at as, oh well, of course their emotions are running high. Look what just happened and things like that. People on the fence give them a little bit more grace than they give us. So it's always good to keep a cool head about you and argue your points, because once the facts come out, people on the fence are going to look at the anti-gun argument as just being, something that is irrational.
What would you tell someone on Twitter or in person if they were concerned with, AR-15s being used in school shootings?
Well, the first and foremost, that's a legitimate concern. I will be concerned about something like that. However, if your school is fortified, if there is, just one exit point and entry point, if there is armed security there, like an armed security team, I'm not just talking about some retired guy with a firearm, but a team of retired guys with firearms, or active or retired military, or something like that. A team that knows how to work as a team with firearms is good. We're talking about locked doors. Some of the worst school shootings that we've had in this country involved doors that were not locked or secured, involved a lack of a team. You'll hear a lot of anti-gunners say, well, there was a school resource officer at Uvalde. There was a school resource officer at Parkland. Yeah, one person. You're talking about one person having to cover an entire school. They're not going to be able to get where the shooter is before multiple innocent people die. So when you're talking about a team, you're talking about a team that's working the entire school. When you're talking about secure doors, you're talking about access where the shooter cannot get to. And it will make it easier for that team to find that shooter. If he can't duck across, a corridor or something like that, because he had access to an open door. So I wouldn't worry about someone walking onto a school campus with an AR-15 if you have fortified schools. If you have, entry point and exit point that's a single point. If you have locked doors, if you have a armed security team and things like that. And, there will be naysayers that say, well, I don't want my schools looking like a prison. Well, I live in Orlando, Florida, and we have Disney. If you go to Disney right now, there's a single entry and exit point for all guests. There's a armed security team. You ain't gonna see them, but they're there. There's an armed security team. There's also police officers there. And there are locked doors to points where you cannot get to, where Disney doesn't want you to. No kid looks at Disney, no parent looks at Disney as being a prison. So why can't we treat our schools the same way? I think when people say, well, we don't want our schools looking like a prison, that's just an easy cop-out, so they don't have to live in a world where a person can keep their AR-15s and their school safe. So, and that's what I would say to somebody on Twitter who believes that, who's worried about an AR-15. Somebody with an AR-15 shooting up a school, or any other gun for that matter. It's a legitimate concern, but it's a concern we can address without eliminating someone's rights.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's always important to bring up now that the Nashville shooter literally passed up on the first choice of school that they're going to go to because of armed security,
Mm-hmm.
and then went to a second location, which ended up being the spot where the shooting took place, and they were unarmed.
Yeah, these people are cowards. They don't want to fight. They don't want someone to challenge them. They want to live out a fantasy of shooting fish in a barrel, so to speak. You know, they just want to walk into a school or walk into, you know, a store, a theater, you know, a concert or something like that, and just shoot a bunch of unarmed people who are not going to shoot back until someone like the police arrives. As soon as they see any type of barrier to that or challenge to that, they move on to the next target that doesn't have that. And that's exactly what the Nashville shooter did. They, that person went to a school that was not fortified, that didn't have a security team, and they thought they was going to kill a bunch of people. Like, unfortunately, I think they killed like 6. So, you know, most mass shooters, they want a high body count because they want to top the next mass shooter, the previous mass shooter rather. So she went into the school and started, you know, shooting. And fortunately enough, she didn't get a lot of people because the police showed up there in time. And then the school that she did ended up shooting up, you know, they ended up having locked doors once a brave little girl pulled the fire alarm and triggered the door lock system. So, you know, when you have fortified schools or fortified structures, that works. That works like a hell of a lot better than words on a piece of paper that says that a person can't have a gun or a person can't shoot up a school or bring a gun on campus or something like that. I would never sit here and rely on gun control laws to protect me. I rely on my instincts, my training, and my firearm to protect me.
Yeah. You know, earlier you mentioned having a team rather than a single person.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the idea of hiring veterans to do that?
Yeah, I believe veterans, especially retired military people. I had a friend who was who I worked with when I was still doing public, well, not public, but private security. Not what I'm doing now, but private security for a hotel. He was retired military, and he yearned for being part of that team again. You know, being back with his brothers, because you know back what he used to do in Afghanistan. You know, they did it as a team. Everything was, you know, everything was part of a team. So I really feel like retired military, if you gave them a chance to, you know, do security, armed security for a school to protect children, they're protecting them with their lives. You know, there's a lot of stories of veterans when they was over in Afghanistan or Iraq, you know, uh, doing things, you know, as being part of the community there with the children of that community. And they protected the children of that community from insurgents who tried to use those kids as human shields to combat the military. So if you're talking about those same people protecting the kids here, they'll lay down their lives to, you know, protect these children. You know, you take the guy in Parkland, the school resource officer there, who stood at a post while gunfire was going on. You know, that's a failure in my book. You know, you have children being killed by, you know, a mass shooter, and he said that he allegedly said that he was just standing there and waiting for backup, waiting for further instructions. And then you have something like Uvalde, even though that was a bunch of police officers, there was one guy who gave the command for those police officers to stand down. and not to go in and neutralize the shooter. So when you're talking about, veterans, they're a bunch of veterans are not going to sit here and stand by and let innocent people get shot and killed. They are going to neutralize that shooter, neutralize that threat as soon as possible. So I'm a firm believer in veterans being hired. Plus, that would create a lot of jobs in that community and give these guys a sense of purpose again.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting to say. A lot of the like one of the problems that you hear when they come back is they feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. And so it's a win-win when you give them that purpose, and it's something as valuable as protecting children's lives, and then on top of that, they get to work with the team again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just wins all around, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that if you give these guys a sense of purpose, you'll see things like veteran suicide go down. You'll see things like veteran homelessness go down and things like that. But we don't want to do that because it's more popular to stick to a narrative that we don't want our schools to look like prisons. We don't want our kids to see men with guns, which you don't have to dress them like they're in the military. They can wear suits and things like that. There's ways to look
Exactly
very welcoming in a school setting like that.
Yeah. The other question I had is similar, but what would you tell people who believe or are pushing for a national assault weapons ban?
It's ridiculous. It's an assault weapons ban won't do anything but make someone feel like they're better protected. A semi-automatic rifle functions the same way as a semi-automatic handgun. It's one trigger pull, a bullet is dispensed each time. So each time you pull the trigger, a bullet is dispensed from the barrel. All rifles account for less than 400 deaths per year. So if you include, lever action, bolt action rifles, pump action rifles, along with semi-automatic rifles, they account for less than 400 deaths per year. More people are killed with blunt and sharp objects in this country than they are from, rifles. More people are killed from hands and feet in this country than they are from rifles. So what are we exactly banning here? So if I'm more likely to be killed because someone stabbed me, or killed because somebody hit me with a bat, or somebody, group of people jumped me with their hands and feet, like we saw during the riots, why am I banning rifles? Rifles, like the AR-15, are highly customizable, very easy to shoot. You can teach anyone from a, let's say, a 10-year-old to a 90-year-old how to shoot that gun. And they can be very effective in using that firearm. I've seen stories where a pregnant woman saved her husband here in Florida with an AR-15 after two guys jumped him and was trying to rob her husband. She used an AR-15 to defend her house. And I saw another case out in Texas. A 13-year-old saved his brother from a home invasion by using his as a AR-15. These guns are not what the media try to make them out to be: mass murderers, mass murdering machines. When it comes to the worst mass shootings that we've had in this country involving that gun, it was more about logistics than it was about the actual gun. You take the Las Vegas shooting. The guy was 33 stories up in a hotel shooting down with a bump stock AR-15 at a crowd where people didn't know where the bullets was coming from. you contrast to what happened today, where this guy allegedly used the AR-15 at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida. He only killed 3. You know, so when it comes to logistics, it's all about the size of the killing field, I guess. Las Vegas shooter had a bigger target, more people, and more time, where the Jacksonville didn't. The AR-15 itself is simply just a semi-automatic rifle. It's just like any other gun, you know. So they want to ban the rifle, but not the round. The round is found in bolt action guns too. You know, a Mossberg MVP is a bolt action rifle that shoots the 223 and 5.56 round. They're not trying to ban that gun, even though it looks like an AR-15 just with a bolt. You talk about, you know, wanting to ban that, like so many people reference the assault weapons ban of the 1990s from 94 to 2004. Well, that didn't ban anything. It banned importation of the rifle from overseas. It banned some furniture on the rifle, like the barrel trowel and the collapsible stock and the flash suppressor, but that's about it. The function of the rifle was still available. And even then, you had some people who were grandfathered in. So people who had all of that stuff on their rifle prior to the ban still got to keep that rifle. And yet we still had mass shootings. We had one of the worst mass shootings during that time, which was the Columbine shooting in 1999. That happened in the heart of the assault weapons ban. And, you know, these was two.
And it also wasn't done with
an AR-15
rifle.
Yeah, it was done with a shotgun, a sawed-off shotgun, a handgun, and a pistol caliber carbine. You know, these two guys was able to pull off one of the worst school shootings in our nation's history with those 3 types of guns. So what good was the assault weapons ban if it grandfathered guns prior to the ban, bought prior to the ban, if it only banned cosmetic features of the gun and not the actual function of the gun. It didn't ban any of the rounds that the gun used. And it only banned like the importation, which people were importing ARs to begin with. So, or like AK-47s, they may have imported that, but even that wasn't something that people typically were using in like your everyday shooting. It was handguns. Handguns was the reason for most of the violence of the 90s. However, politicians wasn't trying to ban those. So I think an assault weapons ban is nothing but a political ploy by the left to score some brownie points with their base and their voters, because they know that's what scares people. It's all about manipulation with them. It scares people, so therefore they promise a ban to get gullible people to vote for them.
Yep. Well, my next question is, whenever your views changed on guns and the Second Amendment, did your views on other things change right away along with it, or did that take some time? How did all that play out?
I think it retroactively happened at the same time. Like I had my views on guns, that definitely changed, but like I think what I started to go towards more of freedom, more towards a freedom mindset. And that freedom may include things that I may disagree with. I don't really talk about my other political things that I on Twitter rather, but I'll talk about it here. On Twitter, I don't really let anyone know about other things that I support, but I like to tell people that I'm a supporter of freedom. So that includes things like being pro-choice and things like that. You know, gay rights, gay marriage, and things like that. Because I feel like what is best for me may not be best for you, and what's best for you may not be best for me. However, I'm going to support your right to do it. So, in terms of being pro-choice, that doesn't mean that I'm pro-abortion. Pro-choice simply for me just means that I'm not going to sit here and tell a woman what she can and can't do. I also believe in, a man's right to his child too. But I'm not going to be the person that tells a man that he can't have this child, or tell a woman that she has to have this child. That's, totally up to them and their doctor. And I don't feel like the government should come in and tell someone what they can and can't do. Like if
What do you mean by a man's right to his child?
So there's some men who want their child. Like they'll find out that their woman is pregnant. The woman may not want the child. She might want to have an abortion. Man might be like, hey, no, I want to be a father. I want to raise this child. So it becomes a stalemate between the man and the woman. That is something that I feel like the courts can figure out whether or not she can, if he wants to sue for her to have the child. If he's successful, then yeah. If he's not, then she can go ahead and have an abortion. I don't feel like there should be any law restricting a woman from having that abortion if she so choose to. But yeah, if he wants to sue her to stop that abortion, and a judge placing an injunction on that, yeah. And I feel like no abortion clinic should accept that woman until that happens, until a court decides. But that's just me, because just like when it comes to something like red flag laws, I'm against red flag laws 100%. However,
100%.
if there is a person who is clearly, something is mentally going on with them, and you feel like they may hurt themselves or hurt others, then yeah, get that person Baker Acted. We have Baker Act laws here in Florida that if a person is Baker Acted, then, from there, there can be a court hearing about that and keep that person locked up. If they're clearly showing signs of mental instability, keep that person locked up until it gets sorted out in the courts. That's how I feel. But as far as like just taking somebody to court because they may have, a gun collection, or taking somebody to court because they support a political candidate that you yourself don't necessarily support, or taking somebody to court because you had a bad breakup or something like that, then yeah, that's bullshit. But somebody who
Can you explain the difference between a Baker Act and red flag laws?
So a person that is like, for instance, if I'm, calling up a buddy and I'm like clearly showing clear signs of suicide, I've tried to kill myself. I took a whole bunch of, drugs. I'm clearly showing clear signs of mental illness that can lead to my death or lead to somebody else being hurt or something like that. You might have a situation where that person may need to involuntarily be put into a mental institution for 3 days so they can be evaluated by professionals. Those professionals would then recommend that that person stays under their care, or they're good enough to go back out in the street, like be released after 3 days, after 72 hours. Red flag laws completely remove due process. what they do is they petition the court to take a person's firearms. This has nothing to do with their mental health. It just is only about their firearms. Where a Baker Act has everything to do about that person's mental health and saving them from hurting themselves. This is only about red flag laws. Is only about removing their firearms. So if a person has their firearms taken away and they want to still hurt someone, they can do it with a bat. They can do it with a car or something like that. Build a bomb or something like that. And the courts won't care, just as long as they don't have their firearms. Or the gun control side won't care, just as long as they don't have firearms. Where Baker Act, people in the mental health community cares if they hurt themselves with a firearm, a knife, a car, drugs, or anything like that. They want to get that person help so they no longer have these thoughts of harming themselves or anyone else. So that is the big difference between someone being Baker Act and someone being subject to red flag laws. It's all about, one is red flag laws is all about guns, while someone being Baker Act is all about saving them or others.
Gotcha. Well, my last question for you is, there's a meme that pops up every now and then, and it is someone telling a white guy that, as soon as you arm black people, you're not going to want your Second Amendment anymore, something along the lines of that. And then the white guy says no, and then the black guy and white guy go off and shoot the guns together.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one before?
I've seen it so many times. So many people share it with me. It's a pretty funny meme because I love the Rage comic memes. I think that's the one you're referring to, where the person like always angry or something about something. Yeah, it's a talking point. It's a narrative for the anti-gun side to believe that anybody who's white, if they see anybody who's white and conservative and a gun owner, if they see a significant number of black people purchasing firearms in a rapid rate, that they'll support gun control, which has never been the case at all. The only time the anti-gun side can point to an instance where conservative whites supported gun control was in 1967 in California, and that was bipartisan and biracial. So you had the Black Panthers marched on the state capitol to protest police brutality. It scared a bunch of people up in California, including the then Governor Ronald Reagan. He supported a ban on open carry. So Democrats, Republicans, black and whites all supported a bill that would ban open carry. Fast forward to 2023, conservative whites and blacks in California have been trying to get this bill reversed to give Californians the right to conceal carry or open carry as they feel comfortable with. And it has only been the true blue white Democrats and black Democrats who have been supporting that same racist bill that they love to throw out whenever I say, oh, well, conservatives wouldn't support gun control if black people had guns. They love to reference that same law in California that Reagan supported, not understanding the history behind that law, that it was biracial and bipartisan in support. Reagan just happened to be the one who was a Republican who signed that bill, which I'm not sure if he was a Democrat at the time. He might have been, but that's neither here or there. But across the country, you didn't see a bill like that, and Black Panthers was across the country open carrying. You even had the Deacons of Defense who would, escort, black civil rights leaders across the South with their guns, and you never seen, even at the time in the South where Jim Crow was running rampant, you didn't see white gun owners supporting a gun control law that banned open carry or concealed carry or carrying a firearm, period. So this whole notion that, you know, white conservatives seeing black gun owners with guns and, flipping out and supporting gun control laws is bullcrap, because, the gun community is very diverse. We have all types of people in this community, whether you're black or white, gay or straight, man or woman, or whatever religion you practice or lack thereof, they don't care. More gun owners will be more alarmed if you're on video with your finger on the trigger of a firearm than it would be of a black guy with a gun or a white guy with a gun or anything like that. We don't care about shit like that. We have more arguments about, whether it's 1911 or Glock or AK-47 or AR-15, or where was the M14 the better rifle, or was it the FAL? Than we do about whether or not a black person should have a gun or a white person should have a gun. And, there's extremists in, all corners of the gun community, but, as a whole, we don't worry about crap like that. We don't worry about whether or not, someone's skin color should matter if they have a gun or not. Stuff like that is just, left-wing, gun control propaganda that wants to divide us and make us war with each other and then see us united. So yeah, no, I don't pay attention to crap like that.
Yeah, if you spent any amount of time in the gun culture community, you know that is a misconception, and a misconception at best, and propaganda at the worst.
Yeah, it's bullcrap, because a lot of these people want to create this narrative that anything that is part of the gun community is racist, or if you're a black person that supports anything in the gun community, you're just a shill for, or Uncle Tom or something, or some other racial slur that they like to levy at you for supporting those in the gun community. So those who are white in the gun community. So it's like, it's bull crap. A lot of these people have no idea what they're talking about. They're listening to talking points that they heard from their favorite news media channels or social media personality or something like that. They don't actually go to a range and see, or go to a gun show and see the diverse community of gun owners there. Every time I go and buy a gun, there's a multitude of different cultures there at the gun shop who are also buying guns or ammo or some type of accessory. Or if I go to the range, there's different people of different backgrounds shooting firearms. So it's like, I like to say that we're more diverse than the Democrat Party, than what they like to believe they are, or any type of liberal circles, because we welcome everybody. We're not discriminating against anyone, but we're painted as that because of political narrative.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carl, I appreciate you coming on. Do you want to shout anything out, like your Twitter or anything?
Yeah. So if anybody's wondering where they can follow me at, you can check out my Twitter handle. Is Your Smartass Carl, or Your Smartass C is the handle, but my name is Your Smartass Carl. So that's UR_A_smartass_C. So that's my Twitter handle. I want to shout out everybody on Twitter. Thanks for following me. I want to shout shout you out for following me and having me on your podcast. I really appreciate that. Thank you for reaching out. I enjoyed this experience, man. I always enjoy talking firearms and talking gun culture and things like that. So anytime you want to have me back, I'm more than happy to oblige.
Yeah, man, it's been a great conversation. Guys, if you will give us a follow and a like, that always helps out. Go follow Carl on Twitter and follow me. You can find me at Liberty Denton. The O is a 0 on there. And I guess that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Stay free.